Draconite was not a newly discovered substance when Horkos first appeared. It was a known material, mined and studied in a land in eastern Ashveld called Keithland. There, Lord Randolph, master of Keithland and count of the land, mined and processed the unstable material, until Astria and Sunda first came to barter for it. A deal was struck, and Horkos would have its supply of Draconite ore for Sunda to refine and remake into the weapon of Horkos' rise to power. For this reason, some came to call Randolph Hell's Merchant, as he so readily sold his wares to Horkos without considering the consequences. But it couldn't be argued that thanks to his deal with Horkos, Randolph grew from a mere count of little value to a lord, wealthy, powerful, and with station. His family wanted for nothing, and the Ashveld lands and even Meyer villages that neighbored his paid him homage. In fact, it was a regular occurrence that the village in the mire known as Kanto would send one of its distinguished kensei, Takamori Saito, to come and offer gifts and special formalities to Lord Randolph. But in truth, Saito had an ulterior motive for visiting Lord Randolph's palace. His daughter, Elena of Kiev. Elena was stunningly beautiful and warm to the samurai, which was rare among Ashveldians, and she was particularly fond of Saito herself, who treated her with great respect and reverence. Publicly, the two were sworn to their positions as a count's daughter and a samurai sworn to Kanto, but privately, the two were very much in love, and within a few months of their meeting, the two met in private for intimate courtship. As a demonstration of his love for her, Saito offered her a gorgeous gift, a diamond cut almost perfectly round and that shimmered like the stars. He said to her, "As the heavens endure forever, and as the diamond is unbreakable, so too are we, eternal and unbreakable." Elena and Saito were both unquestionably impassioned for one another, but they had sworn to hide their romance for now, at least until Elena could leave with him. However, no secret can be kept forever. With Horkos' rise to power, it wasn't long before a chimera began to make moves to counter them, and they required Draconite as well. The daimyo of Kanto believed that Chimera would be a more worthwhile ally than Horkos, and Holden Cross began urging Kanto to help him turn Keithland to their side. Astria caught wind of this. Knowing that she couldn't afford to lose her supply of Draconite, she swiftly began making moves to counter Holden. And that was when she learned a juicy secret from a treacherous servant in the employ of Randolph. Elena was pregnant, and the father was none other than Takamori Saito. On her next meeting with Randolph, she made sure to bow low to Elena formally and congratulate her on her upcoming child. This news took Randolph and the entire court of Keithland by surprise, as Elena had taken steps to try and hide her pregnancy. Rage and fury overcame him, and he demanded to know the father's name. When he questioned Elena, she tried to remain silent, which led to an investigation of her room and the discovery of the round diamond, the gift Saito had given her. Astria confirmed this through testimony provided by her scouts and watchers who knew well the secret comings and goings of Takamori Saito. And now the die was cast, and Randolph brought his full wrath upon Kanto and Chimera. First, he demanded that the town of Kanto turn over Saito immediately to answer for his crime, to which Kanto was forced to obey. Saito was then publicly tortured and then executed for his treachery, and Elena was made to watch through tearful cries as her love was killed in front of her. But her suffering wasn't done there, for Randolph was furious with Elena, and he beat her so viciously and so brutally for her infidelity and betrayal that her unborn son miscarried, and Elena's whole world shattered. Having lost her lover and her unborn child, and her father having whisked away the one diamond, the item that she had been given to remember them by, Elena sank into a state of near catatonic detachment. She barely spoke, going about her daily activities as nothing but a drone, unresponsive and unfeeling. In return for Astria bringing this news to his attention, Randolph swore his loyalty to Horkos without question. And Chimera, though allied with the town of Kanto, could do nothing to stop the execution of Saito, and had to slink away to seek new resources and opportunities. Astria was satisfied with this result. She had her Draconite source. She prevented Chimera from acquiring their own. Horkos was now prepared to expand its territory further. 5 years after the incident at Keithland, Horkos let down its guard, and Chimera raided and took the land, and rumors reported that Randolph had been killed in the process of Chimera's takeover. Chimera had secured their hold on the Draconite mines. Horkos could not let this stand, but Astria was away on other matters that demanded her attention, so it was left in the capable hands of Vela, a warmonger who wanted nothing more than to please Astria. However, Chimera was dug in very deep and prepared to fight tooth and nail to hold Keatland. Horkos risked great losses in a frontal assault, so what could be done? It was then, in Horkos' most desperate hour, that a cloaked woman appeared in Vela's camp and revealed herself. Elena of Kiev, the daughter of Randolph. She had snuck out of the palace and had come to offer aid to Horkos in removing Chimera on one condition: help her take the throne of Keatland as it was her birthright. Vela appreciated this idea. Retaking Keatland for Chimera and putting Elena back on the throne would surely earn Astria's praise, so she agreed to the bargain and supplied Elena with weapons and arms to help her in the fight. And to her surprise, Elena seemed already familiar with swordsmanship, and she was very much ready to demonstrate it. Elena led Horkos' assassins through a secret tunnel into the palace, where they were able to take Chimera completely by surprise. The attack was bloody, and Chimera, caught unawares, was slaughtered inside the very fortress they'd tried to hide within. Vela was beside herself with joy as she walked into the palace like a conquering hero. It was then that Elena led Vela to the throne room, where Vela was met with a sight she did not expect. Randolph was alive and sitting on his throne. He was not dead, but merely taken hostage. Before Vela could speak or inquire about this turn of events, Elena suddenly moved to the throne, pulled the sword that Vela had given her, and decapitated her father as he came to embrace her. Every member of Horkos stood dumbstruck at the sight, unable to believe what they had just seen. Many pulled their weapons on Elena, prepared to slay her, but Elena turned to Vela, blood still dripping from her face as she spoke. "The agreement," she said, "was that in exchange for helping you retake the palace, you would help me take the throne. The palace has been taken. Now I will take my throne as Countess of Keatland." She then kicked her father's headless corpse to the side before gently sitting herself down on the throne, glaring daggers at Horkos as if daring any of them to challenge her. Vela, only moments ago, was filled with pride and excitement, but now was unsure how to respond. Though this was what they had agreed, this was not what she expected. Should she inform Astria? No, it may only make her angry that Vela agreed to such a bargain in the first place. Instead, it would be better to perhaps placate the bloody countess. Vela merely bowed her head in agreement. A deal is a deal. Horkos remained briefly to ensure that no Chimera counterattack was planned, and in that time Elena reforged her father's armor into her own new armor, blackening it with tar and dyeing the robes in blood. Wherever she walked, there was an aura of terror about her that made even hardened Horkos Vikings flinch. She did not speak much and only dined with Vela once in her time with them. Elena spent much of her time searching her father's old chambers for something, never saying what it was, but always tearing apart rooms and furniture to find it. And after 2 days, at last, she discovered her prize. A small round diamond that she held in both hands like it was an infant. Vela shrugged aside this. Best not to question Elena at this point. She didn't seem altogether stable. After Horkos felt secured and satisfied, Vela took her leave, leaving the Countess to her new lands. Elena barely noticed them leave, as she seemed far more interested in the beautiful diamond that she held in her hand, like a sacred treasure, gazing at it with a look that could only be described as desperate passion. When Astria and Ravier returned from their engagement with Aphira, who had invaded Heathmoor in an attempt to avenge the death of their sultana, Astria was finally made aware of what had happened at Keatland. Furious with Vela for not informing her sooner, she instructed Vela to prepare herself for a voyage to find the rumored city of gold across the sea, not caring if she succeeded or failed. Meanwhile, she sent ambassadors to Elena's court to secure this year's shipment of draconite. The battle with the Aphira had drained their current stores, and they were in need of replenishment. When the ambassadors arrived, they discovered a prospering but very dark castle. Black priors stood at the gates. Lawbringers adorned the dark armor guarding the throne room, and Elena herself sat silently on her throne, her beloved diamond by her right arm. When she saw the Horkos ambassadors enter, she stood to welcome them. The ambassadors stood stiff and spoke. "Countess Elena," they said proudly, "Astria, the leader of Horkos, congratulates you on your ascension to the throne and wishes to remind you of the relationship between your father and Horkos. She requests your annual supply of draconite ore immediately to assist in Horkos' war effort." Elena looked between the two ambassadors and nodded. Yes, the relationship between my late father and Horkos. I'm aware of it, she replied, taking a few steps forward. The air of sudden unease washed over them. She didn't seem compliant. But my father is dead, killed by my hand, so any relationships he had are dead as well as far as I'm concerned. Well, that's unacceptable, the Horkos ambassador hissed. Astria expects your compliance and to honor the arrangement we had with Keatland, or there will be consequences. There was a dark glare that crossed Elena's face as the ambassador spoke, but it faded swiftly as she gave a long sigh, slumping her shoulders and shaking her head. You're right, of course, she said softly. I'm being ungracious. Forgive me. Return tomorrow morning, and I shall take you to your Draconite shipment. Feeling relieved and grateful, the ambassadors left the palace to prepare the carts for shipment. When the ambassadors returned the next day, they were surprised to see 4 lawbringers already waiting for them with a horse-drawn carriage beside it. What is this? The ambassador asked. Countess Elena wishes us to escort the honorable Horkos ambassadors to the dig site, so they may receive the promised Draconite, one of the lawbringers explained. She waits for you there. We should leave at once. The ambassadors were tickled pink and happily climbed into the carriage, pleased that Elena had come to their senses. As the carriage moved along, they began discussing travel expenses and plans for how they would be rewarded by Astria for rekindling Keatland's loyalty. However, the carriage suddenly jerked and tumbled. Both ambassadors screamed as the carriage crashed and tumbled over, and as they climbed carefully out of the overturned cart, they looked to see that they had fallen into a great hole in the earth, not far from the palace, and it looked recently dug. Standing over the hole was an army of lawbringers, priors, foot soldiers, and wardens. Elena stood in the middle of this pack, looking down at them. What is the meaning of this? They demanded. You came into my home uninvited. You demanded I pay you honor and respect the agreements of my father, who I executed. You attempt to threaten me in my own fortress unless I comply to your demands. Well then, I will meet your demands, Horkos. You seek the cursed stones beneath my land? You're free to them. They're somewhere beneath the earth, I'm certain, so why not dig down and find them? And as she stepped away from the massive hole, the warriors standing around it all began filling the hole with soil. The screams and howls of terror from the hole were carried across the palace for an hour, until finally they were smothered silent. A few days later, Astria received a message from Elena delivered by a courier. It was short and simple. Astria, I have honored your ambassadors and your order as well as I feel I am able. If you wish further honor done unto yours, I would be happy to oblige. Or perhaps you could honor me with a personal visit, and I could honor you in turn for what you did to Takamori Saito. Furious did not begin to describe Astria's feelings on this matter. Though she doubted Elena would be any more generous with Chimera, it was clear that Horkos would not be able to get as much Draconite as they're used to out of Elena, and they'd have to be far more careful in their dealings with her. With Vela gone to search for the New World, the Aphira barking at their doorstep, and all of Heathmore furious about the rise of her Inquisition, Astria couldn't afford to take Elena lightly. Astria was forced to rely on her gamble with Vela to ensure that they could get the money necessary to finance her plans with the Wulin. But even that was a risky concession due to the unwavering wrath of Elena. Like all warmongers, Elena fashioned herself with a demon name, Zahriel. Though she held no allegiance to Horkos, she eventually agreed to offer them Draconite in exchange for favors, gifts, and heavy payments and offerings to bolster her city. To Horkos' frustration, however, she did not do this exclusively with them. She practiced the same tactic with Chimera, ensuring that Draconite was available to both factions. And to add on to this, Zahriel rigged heavy explosives to every entryway to her mines that she would gladly detonate if her palace was ever besieged. This ensured that if any one of the two factions tried to overthrow her, the other would be forced to protect her in order to maintain the supply. She was untouchable, and ruthless to those who crossed her. Rumors spread of the Queen of Vengeance and her brutal and bloody tactics when dealing with spies sent in by either Horkos or Chimera. Zahriel was not to be tested, and that message was made absolutely clear, ensuring the prosperity and peace of Keatland. And yet, those who saw her could also see an intense pain in her eyes as she gazed at a simple round jewel, gently running her fingers over it and, on occasion, stroking her own navel as if she were stroking her womb. Tears would roll down her face as she did this, and the demoness Queen of Vengeance would melt away for but a moment and expose the pained Lady Elena beneath the armor, yearning for the love she'd found and lost so long ago.